a lot of men, for example, that, begin to take accountability for their porn use will identify as a sex addict. And I don't think actually most guys that look at porn are really truly sex addicts. I think most are shame addicts. Okay, I got 7 minutes. I'm going to go somewhere where nobody will see me, and see if I can rub one out, and hope
Yeah.
I don't get caught. So feeling shame feels normal, and it amps up. I mean, sex is already powerful enough as it is. Wrap it up, crosswire it with shame. You're 10xing, the amplitude of those sexual impulses and those sexual behaviors.
So, can you explain why you're not a big fan of porn and fantasy, and why that actually hurts men? And what do you mean by healthy masturbation?
All right. That's a good question. Now, I occasionally get asked, is there anything like in my books I wished I'd written differently, or I wished I'd not included, or wished I did include? And in general, no. Now, there's two terms that I've used, one in No More Mr. Nice Guy and one in Dating Essentials for Men. And I wished I'd used terms that didn't get so confusing to men. Because one of my general rules about men is that if we can get confused, we will.
Yeah.
Men will go, I just don't understand what you're
Yeah.
talking about. And I'm going, this
Yeah.
isn't rocket science. You're not
Yeah.
confused. It just is contrary to your paradigm of the world. All right. So I'm not opposed to fantasy, masturbation, or porn in general. I think in general, the way most men do those things is not good for them, not in their best interests. Okay. So, like, for example, I've been in relationships with partners where my partners would go, let's watch porn together. And I go, okay. The partner wants to watch porn and we'll sit and watch porn till usually I'm bored to tears. It's often the woman's kind of like getting on.
Really?
I'm going, oh, to me, most porn is just so fucking,
Fake.
staged and
Yeah.
fakey and silly, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's turn the volume down. All those fake groans and sighs are just getting to be too much.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I'm too much of a realist. You can't
Yeah.
even take me to a chick flick or a romantic movie, and I'm just going, "Oh, come on, that is so fucking
Yeah.
unrealistic,"
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So, so there's nothing wrong with porn, and two people want to share it together. A person by themselves want to watch it and enjoy it. That's fine. But unfortunately, it for a lot of people, it turns for a lot of men, it turns into what I call safe sex. It becomes an escape from having real, vulnerable sex with a real human being. All right. And I tell people, we all have a sex drive. We've been talking about that. And it's called a sex drive because it's supposed to drive you to another human being and put body parts in their body parts. That's what a sex drive is meant to do. Right. Whether you're gay or straight, it's supposed to drive you to another human. It's not meant to drive you to your hand and your computer screen or your smartphone. Now, another real big problem is it addicts you to your fetishes. Okay. Okay, so maybe you're attracted to big breasted blonde Amazonians. Whatever it is, if you watch that enough time and you keep running your nervous system to where you keep getting aroused and ejaculating to the same thing, believe it or not, it gets to be you have to have that fetish to get aroused and to ejaculate. And so now, even if you do have real sex with a real human being, most people who kind of really get into the porn thing, they have to fantasize about their fetish or get their partner to do the fetish in order for them to get aroused and to get off. Now,
Yeah.
another problem is not only getting, hyper addicted to our fetish, whatever that might be, it also creates unrealistic standards of the opposite sex or who we're attracted to and sex itself. For example, you mentioned loneliness earlier. I mean, so many men out there, we have all the tools. You can go to a dating boot camp. We got the internet. We got match.com. You got Instagram. You got your swipe right apps. You got your Tinder. You got your Bumble. You got your Field. You can find bukus of beautiful women. And what happens for a lot of guys is they actually never even approach anybody or never actually settle down with one person because, hey, there might be more beautiful women I miss out on. And so now all of a sudden we have this standard. Well, she's not pretty enough. She's not hot enough because I can go see all these hot women. I've had guys tell me, unless I can date a 10, I'm not going to date at all. And guess what? They don't date at all because they don't have the social skills or the qualities to date a 10. And I go, that's like saying unless I can drive a Bentley, I'm not going to drive. And I go, start with a Honda Civic, fuck a few fatties, work your way up, get some experience, right? I
Mm.
believe in that, right?
Uh-huh.
So porn can get you to where, no, I only want those really hot women. And I tell guys,
Mm.
for
Yeah.
example, your great grandfather probably saw 3 beautiful women in his whole lifetime, and he probably didn't see any of them naked. I can see thousands of beautiful women a day naked. You can go to the mall and just watch women walking around in their Lululemons, and you go, that would have ended them up in jail probably 40 or 50 years ago wearing
Really?
the stuff in public. Oh, and I love Lululemon. I wear Lululemon. I'm wearing
Yeah.
Lululemon shorts right now. So I buy Lululemon for my wife. I love it. But my point is, we can get addicted to this unrealistic expectation
Yeah.
of how the women have to look and then what the sex is like. And I promise you, most of the stuff that guys like to look at in porn is not the stuff that turns women on. It's just nothing of the same thing.
Yeah.
So living in that fantasy porn masturbation world works against us having a healthy, expressive sex life with one or more people. And so in just in a lot of ways, it works against us. Okay. Your other question about healthy masturbation. That's the term I wish I'd come up with, maybe a different term. Because what guys will say, Robert, I read what you say about, porn and masturbation, and I get it. So, I'm not looking at any porn. I'm not fantasizing. I'm just touching my body, learning to feel pleasure in my body, learning to experience sensations. But I don't get hard and I don't come. And I go, well, you missed the point in the book. The point of the book was learning to experience pleasure without an agenda of, because, for most guys, sex means get hard, stick my dick in a hole, any hole will do, ejaculate, and then that's good sex. All right. And good sex is so much more than that. Most men never really feel real pleasure in their bodies because they're so focused on their genitals and ejaculating, or so focused on getting the woman off, they don't feel anything. I used to be that way as a nice guy. All my attention went to the woman.
Yeah.
So the healthy masturbation, the intention of it is learning to get a goal or an agenda out of sex and let pleasurable, enjoyable feelings unfold and experience them for what they are. So that's the hard part for most men. We have a hard part detaching from the outcome. So, okay, I'm going to practice healthy masturbation. I won't use fantasy. I won't use porn, but I still want to get a hard on and come within 3 minutes because I don't have all night. I want to get this done
Yeah.
with.
Yeah.
So that's why I'd probably give it a different name than healthy masturbation. I'd probably call it healthy self-pleasuring or something, something different, just again, so men don't get unnecessarily confused.
Got it. Got it. Okay, so pretty much you're just saying try to please yourself without having some sort of agenda or using something that's kind of fake, to be honest, to program your mind to see what sex is. That's what you
Yeah.
really view as healthy
It's a
masturbation.
it's a good practice. I'm
Yeah.
not saying,
Yeah.
you shouldn't ever do X, Y, or Z. I'm not gonna preach at anybody. I just know that for most people, pornography can become so habitual,
Yes.
such a habit,
It's like
and
a
so
drug. Yeah.
isolating. And I'll add one other thing. A lot of men, for example, that begin to take accountability for their porn use will identify as a sex addict. And I don't think actually most guys that look at porn are really truly sex addicts. I think most are shame addicts. That in Western culture, probably Eastern culture as well, I'm sure, looking at porn is one of the best ways there is to feel bad about yourself because it is so demonized in culture. That's why I don't want to demonize it more. So for a guy, okay, I got 7 minutes. I'm going to go somewhere where nobody will see me, and see if I can rub one out, and hope I
Yeah.
don't get caught,
Yeah.
And I know I've told my wife, girlfriend, whatever, I'm not going to do this again. Oh, if she catches me, all hell to pay. Or, I'll quit this once I get a girlfriend and start having real sex. Nobody does. They don't quit it when they start having real sex. They
Yeah.
just hide it from their partner. Or I can't really even get a partner now because if I get one, I'm either going to have to quit looking at porn, which I like, or I'm going to have to tell her I look at porn, which may make her reject me. So I'll just wait a while longer if I even try to get a partner. So there's just so many negative
Yeah.
consequences to that. And I think what it actually is doing is keeping person stuck in what I call a shame compartment that just, sneaking off to look at porn keeps you feeling bad about yourself, which is part of the attraction. Because remember, most of us had our earliest and most powerful sexual experiences in a shame based experience. So feeling shame feels normal and it amps up. I mean, sex is already powerful enough as it is. Wrap it up, crosswire it with shame. You're 10xing, the amplitude of those sexual impulses and those sexual behaviors. So, and that's another thing that a lot of guys actually don't like is when you start taking them out of that shame compartment and they actually start revealing their shame. You know, I've had nice guys sit in my office and show me the porn they look at on my office computer. I've done it on Zoom where, we'll do a screen share. Show me what you look at. And what happens is that drive to look at it goes away. And they'll tell me 2 weeks later, I haven't even had the
Wow.
impulse to look at it because they shared it with me. They released a lot of shame. But something else that happens for a while is that their sex drive starts dropping in general because they're not artificially stimulating it with
Wow.
so much regularity. Then they get kind of concerned about that. Oh, is there something wrong with me? No, you're actually just resetting your sex drive to the factory settings. You hyped it up, 10x'd it, with all the shame of culture, hiding, early experiences, trauma, porn, masturbation, fantasy, secrets, all that. We're just getting you back to where the factory settings were that you came into this world with.
Got it. Okay. Okay, that's great. So we've been talking about sexual fulfillment over the past, I'm not even sure how long. I just want to quickly
We've been
change
doing it
gears
for
here.
hours, man. For
I
hours,
I
we've
can
been
talk
talking
to you
about
for
sex.
hours. I'm telling you.
We can talk about sex for
I
hours.
can talk to you for hours, yeah. But then I just want to make a quick change here. So recently, like I worked at a bank for about 2.5 years here in Canada, right? And I spoke to about 14,000 people. Like that was pretty
What,
much.
did you keep a clicker? You clicked
Yeah,
every
so we have
person
like
you
an
thought?
actual stat sheet. So we can see
Really?
it. Yeah, so I can
Really?
see how many people I spoke with. Yeah. And one of the things that I found was that so many people have trouble with like life purpose. Like they don't really know what they're doing and they're always like lost.
They,
Now
they tell they tell their banker
yeah,
that?
they do, yeah, because I like to
They,
talk
they,
like this when I'm like,
okay.
like I always manage to drag it out
They
of
go,
them,
they
right?
go, Shaq, I need to make a deposit.
I need to make
But
a
you know
deposit.
what?
Yeah,
I just feel so lost and purposeless.
yeah.
I
I
wake
mean,
up
you'll be
every
surprised. Like
morning.
if you
No,
ask the
no.
right questions, people will actually open up.
They do. I
They
agree with you.
do.
People
They do.
people open up amazingly quickly.
Yes, they do. And that was really shocking for me to see because it's not just like younger people, it's people of all ages. And one thing I really like about your story is that you mentioned that when you were in your late 40s, you had your second divorce. And you mentioned that during that time you were kind of lonely and you didn't really know what was going on. But then you managed to actually build a life that's, to be honest, has probably been really exciting over the past, 20 some years, right? So what I want to know is how did you manage to go from that place where a lot of people, they actually end up, feeling like life has no meaning when they go through
Yeah.
what you went through. So how did you manage to drag yourself from that place and find a life that has been giving you meaning and giving you purpose? Like how did you do that?
All right. That's a good question. Now, one thing that I tell people, because purpose is a big topic nowadays,
Yeah.
and a big subject, especially with men. I want to live with passion. I want my purpose. What was my meaning? And honestly, I don't know that there's been that many things in my life, many times where I went out seeking my purpose. But what I often do is go seeking to resolve a problem or something that I don't understand. Because like no more Mr. Nice Guy. I was trying to resolve a problem that wasn't working well for me in my life. So I went seeking answers. When I got divorced in my late 40s, and I hadn't dated since college, and I sucked at it back then. And I
Wow.
married two women and stayed with the two for 25 years, and neither one I should have dated more than 3 dates. So I had to figure out how to be a better picker and how to be a better ender. I just knew I'd end up where. So I went. How do you date? How do you do that effectively? So I've often gone trying to resolve problems that I had, stuff I either I didn't understand or wasn't doing very well. So that's been really actually pretty fulfilling. I've written books about it. Is taking me on adventures, learning to overcome things that I was struggling with. So that's one way. Is if there's something that's not working well for me, I try to get understand it, get good at it. Like I remember when I was teaching, my dating essentials for men programs, guys would say, "Well, I'm not good at X, Y, or Z. I'm not good at texting, or I'm not good at writing a profile, or I'm not good at bantering, or I'm not good at approach." And you know what I would tell guys? I said, "Tell you what, tell yourself that in 12 months, you're going to practice writing so many text messages or writing so many profiles or approaching so many women or banter. You're going to, for the next 12 months, you are going to become such a professional at doing this thing you don't do well right now that people will be asking you to teach it to them." Right? That's where you go get masterful at something, and that's where you begin to find out, I am good at this. I just, had fear or self-limiting beliefs or didn't have the right skills or the right knowledge. So that's a really powerful thing. Go get good at the thing you're stuck on. You're stuck on. Okay. Um, I'm sure when you started, doing podcasts, you probably weren't that good at it.
You're my first
But
guest, by the way.
yeah, and you're actually not bad at it for,
I
you'd
appreciate
be
it.
first to one. And you went out and rented a studio and I mean, you really made an effort. And I bet after this done, you're going to be so excited. You go, next time I know I can do that better and I can do that better and I'm going to do that. And you can't wait to do the next one. That's exciting, right? That
Yeah.
feels purposeful.
Yeah.
Okay. So go get good at something either that you're stuck at, you're having problems with, or you're curious about. Go get good at the thing that you're curious about, or that you've had this daydream or fantasy about. So there's one thing. Another thing that I did is I really worked at becoming more of a social animal. I just got out a lot. I'd take my laptop, a book I was reading, my newspaper, go to coffee shops. I'd go eat a lot of my meals at happy hour at the bar in a restaurant. I'd talk to people everywhere I went. I just practice engaging with people, starting conversations. How's your day going so far? Think it's ever going to rain? Man, how about that ball game? Whatever. I'd ask people their names. I remember their names. I took dance lessons. I went to salsa lessons. I just did. I just got social. And there's one coffee shop I used to go to a lot when I lived in Seattle, and everybody referred to me as the mayor of the coffee shop. I had more than one friend when I was living in a different part before I got married here, living in Mexico, and I was kind of out a lot more and more of a touristy part of town. Friends would come visit me, and I'd be saying hi to people all around. I'd know every waiter. I'd know people that worked at various, and people go, "Robert, you're the mayor of Puerto Vallarta." I just worked at being social. So that's another piece. Another thing that I did is I started paying attention to what I call my sweet spots. Where do I feel the best? Where do I feel the most energized? Where do I feel the most excited? And that actually informed a lot my move to Puerto Vallarta from Seattle, because once I discovered Puerto Vallarta and it's warm and the culture and the food and the ocean and music and blue skies, I just wanted to keep coming back. And so for about 10 years, I just came back and visited as often as I could. And then in that process, I got divorced, was living alone. I didn't come quite as often. Then I still would come down. I go, every time I'm here, I'm happy. Every time I go back to Seattle, it's rainy, it's cold, it's dark. People are in their cars. Nobody talks. Nobody's friendly. And I just, okay, here was a sweet spot. There was not so much. And so I finally, over a period of 10 years, m- orchestrated my business to where I could come live down here for 3 months. That was 2010. And then next year was 4 months, then six. Then after a while, I bought a house, met a woman, Mexican woman, got married, and this is home now. Now Seattle is a sweet spot to go visit my mother in the summertime. And that's a sweet spot. So I try to do that as much as I can. Spending time with guy friends is a sweet spot for me. Not scheduling things too many things in the morning is part of my sweet spot. Not doing my taxes and accounting. having paying someone to do it. Those aren't sweet spots to do. So I pay someone. So I started paying attention to my sweet spots and spending as much time there as possible and minimizing the areas that were not my sweet spots. Okay. Another thing that I started really paying attention to is I had a friend down here. It was an older gay couple that ran a bed and breakfast that I used to stay at. My mother used to come and stay there. They both passed away, um, but the one of them was a German immigrant. They met in Germany after World War II, and he had this thick German accent, even though he'd lived in America. He moved here before I was even born, but he
Oh
still
wow.
spoke like he's fresh off the boat. Um, and he used to he told great stories. They just lived this big adventurous life. And he used to have this one phrase. He said, "It's a sin to say no when you should have said yes." He goes, "It's a mortal sin to say no when you should have said yes." Now, as a nice guy, I always like, "Oh, I don't know if I should do that," or "I don't know, I better think about it," or "I better ask a few people's opinion," or "I better research it," or "I better go slow," or "I don't," and since then, so many things, so many doors have opened up in my life that I just said yes to without even giving them a second thought. People say, how'd you meet your wife?" I said, "I was walking down the street here in Puerto Vallarta. I had my backpack on, going to a Starbucks, being the social animal. Walked past the place. I heard a voice say, 'Hola, senor, want a massage?'" And I didn't even look. I said, "No, hoy, tal vez mañana." Not today, maybe tomorrow. Kept walking, but my friend had been saying, "Robert, pay more attention to your emotional inputs, not just your into." Okay, I thought, I liked her voice. I didn't even remember what she looked like, but I liked her voice. I turned around, walked back, and got a massage. We've been married 7.5 years now. So
Wow.
that was a yes, right? The house that I live in, I'd been looking. I lost two different leases on condos I was in, looking for condo land inside Puerto Vallarta, outside. My then girlfriend, now wife, said, "Robert, I don't even know how to help you because we look at all these places." I go, "I don't know. I'll know it when I find it." The very next day, we walked through this house, and it was empty. It'd been empty for a while. I liked the architecture of it. It has a swimming pool in the backyard. Needed some TLC. I just walked through upstairs, downstairs, walked out front, didn't say a word to my then girlfriend. We get outside and she says to me in Spanish, "You love it, don't you?" I said, "I'm going to buy this house." I didn't know how. I didn't have the money. I bought it and paid it off in 3 years. Okay. My dog Nala was always, either laying right here at my feet or right outside
Yeah.
my. Same thing. Nala found us. Art finds me. Every good, amazing thing in my life finds me. And I've learned when those things find you, say yes. Walk through those open doors. So, being a social animal, getting good at the things that you're puzzled about, that you're struggling with, um, saying yes, identifying your sweet spots, spending as much time as you can in them. Those are the primary ways that I've done, and building good social connection. 7, 8 years ago, I would have told you I had one and a half good guy friends. I thought, all right, I
Wow.
got to work on that. I'm living in Mexico. I don't really know too many people. And so I looked, I found a men's program. Now I got 25 to 50 guys I could call up and they'd fly down here if I needed them. So
Really?
working at creating a robust social life with deep, real connections for me with other men is so powerful.
Okay.
So that's just some of the stuff I've been doing.
Yeah, so it seems like the main thing here is just to really overcome fear, right? And then you mentioned that there's two main things.
That's it, right? That's so easy,
Yeah.
easily said. Hey, man, just
Overcome
overcome
fear, yeah.
fear. Life gets good.
Yeah, and then here's the thing. So in the book, you also mentioned that, there are two main things that guys are scared of, which is, or like they're scared to ask for help and
Yeah.
they're scared to take on a risk or a challenge, right? So, like, mentally, how do you really overcome that fear? Because obviously it's much easier to say it than to actually do it, right? So, like,
Right.
mentally, how can they really overcome that barrier?
What you're talking about is vulnerability, and the vulnerability it has underneath that is that toxic shame. What if somebody finds out I'm not good? What if somebody finds out this is my first podcast? What if somebody finds out X, Y, or Z? And so we don't want to be vulnerable. So we don't risk. We don't expose ourselves in an emotional sense. And I've been that way a lot of times. People will speak of having mentors. I really didn't have any mentors growing up. I had a few people that influenced me, a college professor or two, graduate level, but I didn't like keep that going. And one reason I think I didn't have mentors is I didn't want to like reveal myself, really be known. I remember, I lived on a golf course years ago, and so I should learn to play golf. And it took me forever to get around to getting a golf teacher or taking golf lessons because I didn't want to be embarrassed that I wasn't good at it. Taking salsa lessons. I signed up for first salsa class I ever went to. There were two guys, me and a black guy, and about five or six women. It's on a lunch break. The black guy, he'd been moving his entire life. I don't want to make any racial stereotypes, but he could move,
Yeah.
right? You know, and I'm this, white bread dude, and I was so nervous. I had paper towels in both hands because my hands were sweating
No
so
way.
profusely while I was trying to dance. So I
Yeah.
signed up for a 5-week salsa course. Didn't go to one lesson. So I thought I'm not going to let that win. I signed up for the 5-week salsa course again. Didn't go to one lesson. A
Wow.
third time. Didn't I thought I'm not. So finally, the fourth time I went to a lesson or two. And so I did it again until finally I got halfway decent at salsa dancing. And then I found out, well, I didn't love it. I'm glad I learned. It taught me a lot about leadership, and it taught me about facing my fears. But that's my thing is I don't want to be exposed that I'm not already good at something. And so I'm not a big risk taker because of that. So I've had to work on that. So last year I thought, I've always wanted to meditate consistently, but I've never been good at that. So I talked to one of my coaches and I said, "Hey, you live where Michael Singer lives. He's a big, meditation guru. Will you coach me on meditation?" And we did. I meditated 100 straight days. But I went and got a coach. And then I joined a fitness challenge in my men's membership program earlier this year. So an 8-week challenge, and we had to measure ourselves, take pictures, and a little embarrassing because not in the best shape, not terrible, but I've been better, and that felt good. And I kind of started looking better. So I told in one of my workshops I need a nutrition coach. Two guys said, "I know one. I know one." I hired a nutrition coach that has a specialty in gerontology, working with older people. And so I'm almost about 3 months into working with her, and I'm the leanest I've been in 25 years, and it feels good. But you know what? All of these things required me being willing to get vulnerable and often hiring a coach or going to a class or finding an expert or working with a therapist, something that says, I'm not good at this yet. I don't know how to do it yet. I know I could be better. And then being willing to expose your vulnerabilities where you're not already good or competent or masterful or confident at something. And that's scary for most men. Not for all, but
Yeah.
especially for most nice guys. We're afraid of taking that risk of being seen, of being found out, of not being good enough. Because remember those two things we talked about in the very beginning? I've got to be whatever, I think you want me to be for you to like me and love me. So I
Yeah.
better be good enough, and I better hide any way that I'm not good enough from you or you won't. So that's why it is so challenging to live for nice guys to live this really robust, abundant life is because we spend so much time protecting ourselves from being seen and being vulnerable. So that's the risk we have to take.
Yeah. So it pretty much comes down to just be okay with making mistakes and get support. That, I guess, that's like the main two pillars when it comes down to overcoming it.
I love the way you yeah. It's just these two things, right? Yeah, that's it.
No, 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 no. Like,
Just
it's good though. Yeah.
go walk on hot coals. That's
Go.
all
Yeah.
it takes, right? So it's that easy. So, but I love that about you.
I appreciate
Yeah,
it.
we got to be willing to risk, make mistakes, look foolish, fuck up, go down in
Yeah.
flames if we're going to have a meaningful life. And we don't have to teach ourselves, reinvent the wheel, figure it out on our own. Other people have already been there, done that. Let's ask them how. I mean, as you're podcasting, you probably went and watched some podcasts and watched how people did it. You probably went on YouTube and look for the right setups. You probably, say, "Oh, I want to be like them." You maybe talk to some people that do podcasts. You probably did your due diligence and research, but you're willing to take a risk. You're willing to reach out to me. You're willing to risk me coming on your show. You went, rented a studio to do it in. So you were
Yeah.
willing to take those risks. You were way out of your comfort zone.
Yeah.
And that's when the good life walks in. I've seen it. You probably have seen an image before. There's just a little diagram that says, there's like this X out here that says the good stuff, and then over here is your comfort zone.
Yeah.
That X is outside the comfort zone. So yeah, when we get out of our comfort zone, that's where we find the good stuff. And I just love that idea. Listen, okay, if it scares me, do it. That's
Do
been
it.
my
Yeah.
mantra at least since I turned 40, and I'm 68 now. So for at least 28 years, if it scares me, I do it. My wife, bless her soul, she's a strong motherfucker. She has a mantra: "Si yo quiero, yo puedo." If I want to, I can. And so she's like a role model for me. So yeah, I surround myself with people that are facing their fears, encouraging me to face my fears, that are supporting me, holding me accountable, picking me up if I stumble and fall. So yeah, don't do this alone. Don't do it alone. Find a crew, get a posse, get a team to help you, dive into these things that you want to dive into.